only one seeing that, so Did you all see a green squiggly thing back there? We didn't get back till last night, so I'm not sure what all y'all changed while I was gone with Pastor Tim at the controls. So y'all may have passed some new legislation here that I'm not up to speed on yet. All right, I'll let y'all play with this a little bit. Got a new wireless we're trying to break in this morning, and I think it's close, but I'll leave that to your all's expertise back there. I tell you, we're laughing this morning. Boy, I tell you, when school let out this year, it was a mass exodus. I've never seen anything like this, and I've been asking other pastors if they're seeing the same thing, and they're saying no, but then the average age of their congregation is like, in their 60s or 70s, so nothing really changes there. And where we're so young here, boy, school lets out, and this year, I've never seen a summer like this year. And I was excited because I was coming back to at least not a full praise team, but probably the biggest chunk we've put together in a few weeks, and found out that most of the media team was gone today. So thank you for everything you all are doing back there. And Ron's got the ship, and he's steering it. And Pastor Tim's back there playing with things that he's never played with before. And it's going to be, who knows what could happen? Only God knows. But if y'all see Pastor Tim do something weird to me with lighting that I can't see, just somebody say amen, because you normally don't, and then I'll know something's. So be sure and tell me. All right. Amen. Oh my goodness. We just got back last night, and the last few years we've been going to Hilton Head, because that's just a little more our cup of tea, and I'll always love parts of Myrtle Beach after the season is over, and most of the people go back home. I just like to go down there and eat at Capri's, and I think some of y'all right there, and it's pretty good, isn't it? It's worth going for, isn't it? And so I'll go just for that, and for 2 or 3 days in off season. But this time of year, when everything is so busy, we like to go to Hilton Head, and we stay at a place called Sea Pines. I don't know how big it is. I think it's about 5,000 acres. Everything in Hilton Head is like resorts. There's no, it's not hotels and stuff like that. It's not commercialized. And we stayed at a place called Sea Pines, which is a very unique place in the whole country, not just at Hilton Head, but in the whole country, because they've taken this giant nature preserve and they've built condos into it without disturbing the ecosystem. And so we like going there and being surrounded by all the water and the alligators and the crazy-looking birds, and just watching the birds do crazy things. And it must have been mating season for half the lizards and half the birds down there. I've never seen such funky dances with birds, and the lizards doing all kinds of things with colorful things coming out of their throat and doing weird things, and they'll do it for a while, and then you'll see this little girl lizard come out from around the corner, and you just sit there and watch them, and it is just hilarious to watch God's creation. And I wonder if they ever look back at us telling similar stories. It's like, did you see those humans? But we love it, and we like to bike, and so it's just miles and miles and miles of bike paths everywhere through beautiful, beautiful areas. And for me, it's like the Garden in Eden. And so every time we go down there, I come home thinking about the Garden in Eden, and I start thinking about the creation story all over again. And I just love the things that we do there as a family. That's a little unique for us now compared to most of our years together. And just biking on the beach is a special thing to me, because you cover a lot of ground fast, and you see things in I think Friday morning. Was it Friday morning? What's today? Sunday, Saturday, Friday morning. Our last day there, we went out and biked on the beach. Our last full day there, anyway, and got to see the dolphins swimming up the beach, and the pelicans in single file coming in and just diving down for fish, and it's a very, very special thing, because that's not what we're used to seeing here in the mountains. And so a lot of neat things happen when you're in a place like that. Unique things that you see that are special maybe to you, maybe to no one else, but to you they are. Now, a week doesn't go without a hitch sometimes, and we had a couple moments this week that it's just like, I wish that wouldn't have happened, but it did happen. And so you figure out, can you make a lemonade out of this? And I finally feel a little closer to Steve Irwin this week, because I had my first little encounter with a stingray, and wasn't sure what happened till I was informed by the lifeguard. And so when I was coming up through the water heading back to the beach, I felt it on my foot across my toes, and my first thought it was a stingray, because how many's ever been stung by a stingray? I mean a jellyfish. How many's ever been stung by a jellyfish? You've been stung by a jellyfish and it hurts, doesn't it? And you got to get somebody to pee on it for you, because that's the only thing that works. And so I thought that's what it was, and it was hurting like crazy. I thought, oh man, a jellyfish just got me, but oh my goodness, this hurts so much worse than any jellyfish sting I've ever had. And then I came out of the water and I looked down at my foot and I noticed the blood, and it's like, okay, you don't bleed from a jellyfish sting. And I started heading towards the lifeguard station, because the little chair thing there, because I was going to ask her to spray me with some of their ammonia stuff for jellyfish, and then I realized that's not a jellyfish, but maybe she'll know what it is. You know, if you just cut your toe on a rock or something in the water, you don't even feel it. You come out and people go, oh, you're bleeding. It's like, oh, really? And so, and I knew it wasn't something like that, because the pain was just horrendous. And so the lifeguard, she's this little blonde girl in the classic red bathing suit. She's up the beach, and she sees I'm hobbling out of the water, and then she comes, and she's in slow motion running down the beach towards me. And it's just like Baywatch. My wife said, oh, the things you'll do to get a pretty girl to mess with your feet. And she took a lot of pictures, and I haven't allowed her to post any, but I might later. But she says, I'll sit down. She said, yeah. She said, that's a stingray. And she's working on it. She's putting this hot compress on it to try to draw the poison out. She says, yeah. She says, every woman I've ever talked to that had a run-in with a stingray down here says that's worse than childbirth. And I'm going, thanks for your encouragement. That makes me feel better right there, knowing what I've got to look forward to. My foot is going to experience something worse than childbirth. But I was fortunate, because the barb just came up between my toes and got one of the toes and hooked it really good. And she said, you need to go back to your house, and you need to run the hottest water you can stand and put your foot in it. She said, and the pain will go away. But we sat there for a while, as long as I could, all wrapped up and letting Hannah play, and finally said, I've got to go. So I'll go back, and I put my foot in this bathtub of hot water, and sure enough, she's right, man. The longer you sit there in that hot water, the more the pain goes away, because it draws the poison out. And so I thought, you know what, that's going to hinder our day just a little bit. So they went to the pool, and I sat there and soaked in hot water. But by the evening, I was able to bike again, and we went out and we did some things and had just a wonderful meal with some good friends of ours, a couple different families from Princeton that was there, and it was a really, really good day. Even though for a couple hours, man, it was just really, really super painful. And then that same night, Friday night, we went out to eat with some friends, and when we left, as soon as I started leaving the restaurant, I got this low pressure signal for one of my tires, and we turned and went into this gas station and got out, and they looked fine to me, and I finally found which one was low, and I aired it back up, and I told her, I said, well, it's probably was just low, and I'm just now getting a signal, so we'll just have to go back and see what's happening. At this point, it's like 6:30, there's really not a lot open anyway, so we go back to the condo, and we sat in there for a couple hours, and I say, I just need to go out and check it. So I go out and I start the car to see what it says. Sure enough, I'm getting that signal again. The tire is getting low. So everything is closed. We're leaving the next morning. The plan was to leave at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, so we could miss the hellish traffic that we knew we were going to. You don't hit it going down. Man, we get there in 7 hours, you're there at Hilton Head, and everything is beautiful. And you come back and everything's great until you hit the Virginia line. And I don't know what happens. As soon as you hit the Virginia line, everything begins to go wrong. And I was trying to avoid that. So we went and we got some Fix-A-Flat, and we put in it. And it's like, okay, but that's not safe to start a journey home on. So I found a place close by that opened at 8 o'clock yesterday morning for just a few hours. That fixed tires. So we were sitting there at 8 o'clock. They fixed the tire, pulled a 12-penny nail out of it. We found the problem. They fixed it. It was so nice. The guy he only charged me $40 cash. And of course, I didn't get a receipt for that. It's like, oh yeah, our computers are down. I sure hope you've got cash. It's like, well, we were going to pay in cash anyway, but that'll be $40. He told me they had to take the tire off, clean it out because of the gunk that I shot in it to slow the leak down. And of course, I wasn't offered a receipt, so we all know what happened there. At that point, I didn't even really care. I just wanted to go. It's 8:30. We need to get out of here. And of course, then we ended up hitting horrendous traffic and taking a lot longer to get home than what we wanted. So those were the only two bad things that happened all week. Stingray encounter, flat tire encounter. Two things. But boy, the stories I could tell you about those two things. But the truth is, if I started telling you the stories of all the good things that happened, it's just endless. Endless, the experiences, the moments. Just the special times as a family, or just taking Hannah and showing her things in nature there, and her and I going on walks together, and just the things that we saw that were just very unique that you don't get to see every day. I could go on and on about how wonderful this week was, but the truth is that most human beings can have a week that's filled with great things, and just a couple things go wrong, and we know where all the focus is going to go, and all the conversation is going to go, and all the stories. And Facebook, they're going to blow Facebook up. And they're going to be sure that everybody knows about how terrible their day is, and just how we should feel sorry for them. And we've talked about it so much before. That narcissists really come out of the woodwork when they're having bad days, because it's essential to let everybody on the wall know what kind of day they're having. We have to. We don't know what's supposed to come from that, but we have to let everybody know. But you never see anybody posting on this like, man, I just want you to know I did have one little hiccup today, but my day, I have kept count. 72 awesome things happened today. Some of them are things I never really thought about, like I was breathing air. I was eating food. I was walking. I went to pick something up, and I looked at it, and without even thinking, my hand went out, picked it up, grabbed it, and lifted it up. I looked at it, and my eyes was able to see what was on it. It was an incredible day. Nobody posts stuff like that. Nobody talks about stuff like that. And Facebook is the new talking about stuff. It's the new speech. We talk all about the bad stuff that happens, and yet I wonder if there were a scale and we put the bad stuff on one side of the scale and we put the good stuff on the other, would it even remotely balance out? No. But I was at the Garden in Eden, and I was forcing myself to look at the big picture, and I tell you, after the fact, and the pain goes away, this is a guy thing. Some of you ladies wouldn't get this, and if you guys don't get this, then there's something wrong with you. But once you go through something and you live and it's over, you think it's kind of cool. I think it's cool that I had a stingray encounter. Have you had a stingray encounter? Me and Steve Irwin have. Mine turned out a little better than his. I think that's cool. I think that it's okay that we were a couple hours late getting on the road because, man, a monsoon opened up early before daylight yesterday morning, and I cannot imagine if we were out on the road trying to drive in that. I mean, it would have just had potential tragedy written all over it. How can I complain about something that delayed me till the monsoon was over for us to hit the road? I don't know what the potentials were, but God did. So how can I gripe about a flat tire that delayed potentially something very bad? I was in the Garden of Eden, so all week long I thought about the creation story. And I think it was right after my first trip down there to Sea Pines that I began to write The Architect of Eden, because it began to launch things in me. And if you can take just a moment today, I want to take you back to the garden with me just for a few moments, and I want to remind you something. Nothing new. If you've been around here for a while, nothing new here today. But if you've been a parent, you know how this works. You tell your kids the same 5 things over and over and over again in hopes that one day the light bulb will pop on and they'll get it. The light bulb's going to pop on for some of y'all today. Look at this in Genesis 1, 1. Let's read about 5 verses here. In the beginning, say beginning. Here's where things start in life. This is the story of life beginning. This is where life begins. If you've read my book, you understand that the story of creation is not just the story of creation, it's the story of everything after creation. It's the story of life. This is how life works. Every single thing you need to know about God, you, and how life works between you and God is all in the creation story. Everything after that is just redundancy. It's the same stories from different angles, the same messages from different angles. In the beginning, here's where life starts. God. And He created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. And if you've read The Architect of Eden, you know how we take those words and we tear them apart. And we try to bring them into the 21st century where they're relatable. Now, in the 20th century, we took some of those terms and we brought them into a place of understanding using the word chaos. Because the word chaos very well represents the picture that God is trying to paint here in early creation. That whatever was out there, whatever it was that existed, I can't even comprehend it, whatever it was chaotic. There was no form to it. There was no function to it. And so the term that we would use to understand what was going on is the word dysfunctional. Whatever was going on, it was in complete dysfunction. It could not function. It was not working together. It could not produce. It could not be fruitful. It could not be seen. The Bible says that darkness filled whatever was there. And a funny play on words, that it was filled with emptiness. And while that sounds like a contradiction in terms, filled with emptiness, how many people here who know for a fact that you physically exist has ever said, I feel so empty inside? You physically exist, but you're filled with emptiness. God's trying to show us the story of not just creation at large, but creation in you. You see, here's where it often starts. Formless, empty, chaos, dysfunctionality, filled with darkness, hovering over the surface of your deep. But also there in the midst, the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, say said. Now say said. Isn't that funny? Said. God said. God. He didn't just think it. God said. I want you to understand something powerful that's going on here. This is your first picture of the one we call Yeshua, the Christ. In the beginning was the Word. The Word became flesh. The first time God spoke was the first time in history that something tangible happened with God. God is spirit. God's realm is spirit. The first time there's any tangibility to God on any level is the very voice of God. And He spoke and He said. 4,000 years later, the Word became even more tangible. It became a human being. The one we call the firstborn of God. The Son of God, Jesus Christ, who existed with God from the very beginning. Not as a human being, but as the very words of God, the tangible part of God. Have you ever thought about that the only tangible part of God we see prior to Jesus is one thing, His voice? It's the only tangible attribute of God. But it became even more tangible through the person of Jesus Christ. The Word became flesh. God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw. Say saw. Say said. Say saw. Said. Saw. Said, saw. God saw that the light was good, and He separated the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness He called night, and there was evening, and there was morning the first day. God's doing two things in this story on day one. Same thing He's going to do on day two, same thing He's going to do on day three. He's going to said and He's going to saw. That's all He's going to do. He's going to say some things. He's going to see some things. That's all that's happening. And according to what He is saying, and according to what He is seeing, which then produces even more what He is saying, like when He looks at something and he sees it, and then he says something and he sees it again, and it's just changed because of what he said. And now he's looking at it again, and now he's saying something else like, this is good. This is good. This is good. Let there be light. And he saw there was light. And he said, this is good. And he saw that the waters and the earth and the heavens they were just all hodgepodge together. You couldn't separate the earth from the heavens. And he saw that, and he said, let there be a separation. And then he looked and he saw again, and he said again, this is good. I want you to see through day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, that God is completely determining his days by two things: how he looks at things and how he says things. We can look at something like this and go, oh, that just sounds like a bunch of protocols and mechanics. This is God. This is the God who for 6 days showed us who he was, how he operated, how he did things, and then said, by the way, I'm going to make you now, and you will be a reflection of me. So as soon as God says, I made man in my image, we have to look back at everything we knew about God prior to man existing, so we'll understand who man is. If we don't understand who God is, we don't understand who man is. If we don't understand how God is, we don't understand how man is. If we don't see how God operates, then we won't know how to operate, and we will end up in a mess in life and be honestly confused. What happened here? God is putting in motion how life will work. And he determines his days by two things: how he is looking at life and what he is saying about life. How he sees and what he says begins to determine his days. Isn't it funny that if we look at not just at Cornerstone, but in contemporary non-denominational churches across the board, and I'm sure there's other churches also, but I just know more what goes on in our kind of place. And if there ever were two passages of Scripture that we play off to try to make the kingdom of God functional, it would first of all be this one. Solomon speaking on behalf of God when he says, for lack of vision, my people perish. For lack of vision. Now, I understand that in the 20th century church, we put a brand new spin on that word vision there, and it became to represent the protocols or the direction of the local church. Here's how we're going to have church. Here's going to be our emphasis. I don't have any problem with that. We do that also. However, getting back to just the context here, that is not the priority in what God's wanting us to see. For lack of vision, my people perish. Say, see. See. See, say that. See. See. Vision means see. How you see things. Your vision. Do you have good vision? Do you have bad vision? Is your vision blurry? Do you see things just far away or just close up? Or do you have good vision? Are you seeing just slices of life? Are you seeing the big picture? Are you just seeing what's happening in front of your face, and now you're making all your judgments, and what's going on right here, right now in front of your face, determining all your emotions? Is all of your day now going to run through the filter of what's happening right now? Is your whole life going to run through the filter of what's happening just today because of how you're seeing it? God said, for lack of vision, my people perish. For the inability to see as it really is, to see the truth, to cast down imaginations and every high thing we've exalted above the truths of God, to see what's really going on. Because my people can't do that, they perish. How many messages have we preached here at Cornerstone in 19 years plus from that passage? We have preached whole seasons on vision. Whole seasons on vision. If I had to pick out another verse that we've preached from a lot here, you would recognize it. It's about the tongue. For the tongue has the power of life and death. We've preached whole seasons, multiple times, on the power of life and death in the tongue. Isn't that interesting? The two things God shows us as days begin to progress in life. God is showing us there's two things that matter that determine your life, your days. How you see things and how you say things. What are your filters? What are your walls? Are you an optimist or are you a pessimist? Are you a person that takes one bad thing and you gravitate towards it and that's all you see? There's a beautiful forest there, but you put your thumb right in front of your eye that you just mashed with a hammer and that's all you can see is just your thumb. How you see things, how you say things. The Garden in Eden is a model that demonstrates a progression towards fruitfulness and rest. The two things that every human being chases after. Fruitfulness. I want to be productive with my life. I want to do something with my life. I want my life to mean something, to show something. I want to look back at my life and say, this is what I've produced. It has mattered that I've been here. Fruitfulness. With each day, God is showing, determining those days by how you see it, how you say it, how you speak about those days, determines, are you heading towards fruitfulness or away from fruitfulness? And with every day, the earth became more fruitful and more complex in its fruitfulness. From simple things like vegetation to something more complex like animal life, to something even more complex with intelligence like human life. And God is trying to show us there is a progression, that harvest has a progression. God has created us to be fruitful. Jesus made very clear that I'm the trunk of the tree, and you're the branches. And I will keep monitoring your life. And when I see things in your life that is not producing fruit, I will cut those things off and throw them into the fire. When we read that whole passage, we understand clearly Jesus is saying, I have created you to be productive, to be fruitful. God is modeling that in creation. With each new day of our existence on this earth, of this planet's existence, God is showing it's progressively getting more and more fruitful. He's also showing us that it's getting closer and closer to that seventh day, that day of rest, that day of peace, that day everybody wants, that day that everybody hungers for. A day when Sabbath is not just a 24-hour period of the week on Sunday. The Sabbath is what the writer of Hebrews says. It's a lifestyle now. It's a covenant. It's the very new covenant of God. It's a place where even if sucky stuff happens today, it's okay. It's okay. I'm not going to die here. And if I do die, that's not that bad either. It's when we can see the big picture of life and that whatever is going on, it's okay because God works all things for good because I love Him and I've responded to His call in my life. God is showing the model. There's two things that determines the two things you want more than anything else. Fruitfulness and peace. We want fruitfulness in our marriage, in our families, raising our children, on our jobs, in our money, in our bodies, and with everything that we put our hands to. God made it so clear in the Old Covenant with the Moses generation, and then even more with the Joshua generation. I want to prosper you. Wherever you put your hands, wherever you put your feet, I want to prosper you. If you go back and look at the Bible, you'll see there's two hot topics from cover to cover. They break down in many ways, but they're categorized in two areas: fruitfulness and peace or rest. Being at peace in life, content, while you're waiting to produce more than what you're producing today. God is saying the two things that you long for and hunger for, there's two things that you do that determines if you're progressively heading in that direction. How you are seeing your days and what you're saying in your days. It's just that simple. Eden is a model that inches us towards what Jesus said He came to give us: abundant life. Jesus said, I have come to give you life and life abundant. There were many other things that He did while He was here that was part of that. He died on a cross. He crushed the enemy's head. He redeemed humanity back to God. He reconciled us back to God. He justified us where our sins would no longer be held against us. He preached the kingdom of God was at hand, helping us understand there's a full restoration taking place that goes all the way back to the garden of God before the fall. He did many, many, many things while He was here, and even the work of the cross itself did 3 major things that we talked about on Wednesday nights this winter. But it all comes under one big umbrella. I have come to give you life and life abundant. And it's funny because when you read the Bible, God seems very, very concerned about our lives right here, right now. I want you to understand that in Israel's history, that is not how they thought. Israel was very much a someday society. And God was not happy with it. God would come in and say, come on, I want to prosper you. I want to make you fruitful. I want to give you ground. Here are the boundaries marked out. I want to give you life now. And they were never concerned about it. Joshua was, Caleb was, a generation was, eventually. But they never had stickicity with it. They were always, they hung on every word of the prophets because it was always about someday I'm going to rescue you, someday I'm going to make your life better. And then they always misunderstood the prophecies because they were so carnal. God was just so incessant, I want to give you life. I want to give you life right here, right now. And they weren't interested. Kind of like the 20th century American church. Totally disinterested with life right here, right now. Only concerned with someday. Someday. Exactly like Israel. Someday God's going to get us out of here. Someday we're going to a better place. And it's a repulsive stench in the nostrils of God, who came in flesh as one of us and said, I have come to give you right here, right now. Have you ever noticed that the people who aren't concerned about life right here, right now, aren't really concerned about much of anything? Have you ever noticed that people who only talk about heaven someday are never really that concerned about trying to find heaven right here, right now, the kingdom of heaven that Jesus talked about, which was not the age to come, it was right here, right now. People talk about the somedays of heaven and hell, and they're so out there someday, they're not even doing anything about trying to save the ones that they think are going to hell because they're so out there someday. Jesus, God in flesh, spoke. He said, I have come to give you life and life abundant right here, right now. And I believe God is very displeased with the attitudes that say, you know what, my life stinks. It's just a bunch of junk. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm just going to hold on, ride this thing out because there's a better day coming on the other side. Well, I think the other side probably is better. But I don't think that's why Jesus went to the cross. He came to give you life right here, right now, life abundant. And then He gave us the steps, the demonstrated steps. Here's how you do it. Not to get legalistic about it. We've been there and done that. Lord have mercy, the charismatic movement in the early days did enough of that to last us a lifetime, where we turned everything into mechanics and witchcraft. We can do these things as a lifestyle out of character, though, where it produces exactly what God said it would produce. Because we're the sons of God, and it matters what we say. We're the sons of God. It matters how we see things. It matters. God shows us a demonstration. He starts with chaos, darkness, emptiness, dysfunctionality. He goes through a progression of days. And at the end of those days, that same realm is filled with fruitfulness and beauty and rest. And day after day, the only 2 things God was doing was saying and seeing. How do you see your life? How many of you all got out of bed today, breathing, walking, seeing, hearing, talking, most of your internal organs doing what they're supposed to do, ate food if you were hungry, got in the car if you didn't want to run to church, bypassed a million luxuries along the way between there and here, from our flat screen TVs to whatever else we have, refrigerators to keep our food cold, stoves to make them hot, electricity to keep us cool in the summer, warm in the winter, and the list goes on and on. But something happened. Something happened. A slight argument with the child. Car didn't start the first time. Everybody wasn't ready when you wanted to go. Something happened, and now your whole day is just thrown in upheaval. And now you've taken that, and this thing is beginning to spawn into this gross imagination that this day is just terrible. I can't wait till it's over. I hope tomorrow is better. What can be better? You're breathing today. If you're breathing tomorrow, how do you best that? Do you understand how infantile the things are that we complain about? Do you understand how sick and twisted our perspective on life is some days? And because that's what we believe in our heart, we speak that stuff, and then it begins to perpetuate. Saying produces seeing produces saying produces seeing, how we see it, we say it, how we say it causes us to see it that way even more, and it's just self-perpetuating. And before long, we're sitting there with a woe is me, and boy, let me get on Facebook here, man. I have got to let you all know how my day sucks. Woe is me. Will one of my friends I need 5 of my friends just to comment back and say, oh, I'm praying for you. Just know you're loved. I hope tomorrow was a better day. Somebody encourage me. Make me feel better. We have taken self-gratification into emotional realms that is unbelievable in American culture. Unbelievable. Because our days are so bad. Because that's how we see them. And then that's how we say them. And then instead of a day of rest, a day of peace and fruitfulness and productiveness and a beautiful life, in our minds, that's not what we see, it's not what we say, and now our life just stinks. Nobody in here has a life that stinks. On your worst day, are you still breathing? Are you still walking? Are you still talking? Are you still hearing your children's voice? The stingray gave me some pain, an uncanny pain. It was crazy. But I didn't want to leave the beach at the time because Hannah was having such a good time with her boogie board out there, and I was so enjoying watching my child have fun, I did not want to interrupt that. I'll bet you that every single time something bad happens in your life, if you will open your eyes and you will have vision to see, you'll see there's at least 20 things good happening that outweighs that one bad thing by quite a bit. And I'll bet if you'll start talking about those good things that are going on, what you are seeing, oh, I see the light. Oh, I see how the waters are separating. Oh, I see the plant life, how it's beginning to produce, and it's dropping seed that produces more plant life. And you begin to talk about the wonderful things you're seeing in your world around you. The more you say it, the more you'll see it. And the more you see it, the more you'll say it. And before you know, day by day, you are progressing towards life and life abundant. Could it really be that simple, Pastor Scott? Yes, but you don't know what's going on in my life. Yes, I do. I read it on Facebook. I do know what's going on in your life. And some of y'all need to grow up. Because some of y'all got big Facebook mouths. And you are overlooking the goodness of God in your life. And you are posting trash about your life. You're speaking it, and therefore that's all you're seeing now. Your life is good. You need to finish your days the way God demonstrated He was finishing His days. This is good. It's a good day. I saw some light today. I saw some things today. This was a good day. It's a good day. I hate to be grabbing stuff, but you start getting up in the ears, and if you can fart, it's been a good day. Get some gas trapped in there for about 2 hours thinking you're having a coronary, and take that for granted anymore. Isn't it funny the things we take for granted until we're having a complication? And then now it's all we're talking about. Well, why aren't we talking praise stuff about it on the days when we don't have gas around our heart? Man, this is an awesome day. I went all day with no gas around my heart. All day. Man, I was tooting like a horse everywhere I went. Post that on Facebook. Man, my day is good. Man, I let one rip today, and I think it just emptied me out of everything. I have never felt this good in weeks. I'm being graphic because I'm trying to draw your attention to those simple little things every day that you don't think about. You don't think about not being able to pee till you can't pee. You don't think about not being able to poop till you can't poop. And you know what? Isn't it funny? You think you got all those problems, get constipated. It just instantly everything else shrinks. Suddenly all these problems that were so huge, just get constipated. Suddenly they're just not that big a deal anymore. If I could just poop. Now y'all should be relating to what I'm talking about. And that's why we need certain things to give us scale in life. That's why we need pain every once in a while. Pain gives us scale for life, and it reminds us of all those many times that we're not in pain. Your life will be determined by what you say and how you're seeing it, how you're looking at your days and what you're saying about your days. That will determine your life. I will not determine your life. Your marriage is not what's determining your life. You say, well, I got a hell young kid. You don't understand. That's not what's determining your life. God's got all kinds of hell young kids, and I'll bet you God's still doing just fine. Well, if I had a better job, if I had a better... Is that really how you see it? How you see your life and what you say about your life 100% determines the quality of your life. Are you heading to abundance and fullness and rest and fruitfulness? Or is your life just hanging back there where it's dark, empty, chaotic, dysfunctional? It is not God's choice. It is your choice. Stand with me this morning. Aren't you glad that I came back from the beach in such a great mood? You know what? Listen to me. I don't know about you, but I suspect that you're going to relate to this. I am reminded when I'm on vacation outside the traffic, I'm reminded, man, life can be pretty sweet. Man, you lay on the beach and you eat good food and just, I don't know, just that whole mental thing changes in life and you're there instead of being here and just the change of environments and you relax. And everybody says, man, every time people go, oh, I just want to move here. No, you don't. Where would you go on vacation? West Virginia? I don't want to live in those places. I want to go visit those places because they're too good to live there. How many understands what I'm saying? They're too good just to live there because then it becomes familiar and normal and now it's not special anymore. That's why I don't want a Carrabba's in Princeton because it won't be special anymore if they put a Carrabba's in Princeton. I'm always reminded on vacation through multiple things how full God wants our life. Some of y'all maybe came out of religious systems where you think it's all about just trying to stay sin-free, live perfect lives, getting all your ducks in a row, living right, measuring up. Good luck with all that, by the way. I, on the other hand, am a father. I have a child, so I know how fathers think. My daughter is a sinner, I'm just going to tell you. She's the chiefest of sinners in our household. I never think about her sin. My daughter she is not perfect, but she's perfect to me. Do you hear what I'm saying? In all of her little flaws and even her little, where she gets upset and she growls like an animal. It's like, you're not an animal, you're a little girl, stop growling like an animal. What's that song that, oh, she just left. What's that song my wife likes all the time? Talks about and I wanted to sing it here till I looked at the words, love all your curves and all your edges. All of me. I wanted to sing that to God, and I didn't know how to put a fresh twist on some of that. I would do it, but I don't want y'all to misunderstand any of it. I think it's a beautiful song, and the words are very real. because it's about being in love, flaws and all, warts and all. It's the way I am with my daughter. It's the way I am with my wife. It's the way God is with me. So I'm saying if you're all hung up on trying to keep your life right and straightened out in order to have life, it isn't going to work. I'm going to tell you now, it hasn't worked. It will never work. It's simpler than what you're thinking. It's just getting up tomorrow, trying to look at your day with good vision, seeing things as they really are, not as you imagine them to be, and beginning to speak about the goodness of God, the good things in your life. You don't have to put a tag on there, well, God's been good to me in this, and God's been good. No, just start talking, man, my life is so good. Man, I can see, I can walk, I can grab things. I don't even know why this is doing this. I'm not even thinking about it, and it's doing it. I'm air juggling. I'm not even trying. I'm not even thinking about it. Look at those things, the big things that we take for granted and do not have vision to see. See those things. Talk about those things. If your kid is acting up, I guarantee there's more good things than bad things about your kid. Start seeing those things and start saying those things. I guarantee in most of your marriages there's a lot more good than bad. There's 3 things you don't like about your spouse. 3 things. The way they look, the way they talk, the way they smell. It's only 3 things you don't like. But look at all the good stuff. Talk about that. I'm not perfect. Cornerstone's not a perfect church. We're filled with flaws. If you don't know that, you haven't been here very long. But you know what? I guarantee if you stick around, there's going to be a long list of good things that far outnumbers the bad things. I'll say with all humility, I'm going to make you mad from time to time, and I got some quirkiness that's going to get on your nerves if you get close enough to me long enough. But I promise you, if you remember all the good things I've meant to your life, and not just those 1 or 2 bad things, I promise you, you're going to like me. Because that's what I have to do with you. I keep reminding myself of all the awesome things about you, not just those 3 things that just really grate on me. Just reach out and grab a hand next to you. Let's just seal this with some prayer this morning. Father, you've made this simple. We have complicated it. We are just so stinking religious that we complicate everything. We say the right things, that you love us and you've always loved us and your love abounds and that your grace abounds more than our sin. And we know how to quote the scriptures, but Lord, we don't know how to live in this stuff yet, where that stuff just gets settled and now we can focus on how to live life productively. Now today, Lord, I pray that you'll help us to walk out of here settled in our heart. I'm a child of God. That stuff's all taken care of. How do I live my life better? It's not about begging you for more things, Lord. It's not about having a bigger prayer life, even, Lord, in many ways where we're asking for things. Lord, you've given us the protocols. You've given us the power to choose how we're going to see our days and what we're going to say about our days. Now help us to leave here empowered with that information. It'll become revelation, and it'll become manifestation. Help us to not complicate it, and help us not to think that we're an exception. Help us not to walk out everything, well, I know that'll work for everyone else, but it won't work for me. Help us to not fall into that trap. Lord, that's a lie. Help us to also know, Lord, that we can begin to reverse curses in our life today simply by how we're seeing our days and how we're speaking about our days. You have empowered us to be able to do that. Those of you that would say today, I'm walking out here, Pastor Scott, 100% determined just to do 2 things starting right now. See my days different and speak about my days different. Could you just say, amen? Amen. Well, I want to thank y'all for being such a lively audience today. And I do love you guys, and I have missed you. And hang on for the weeks to come. Next week is Beach Sunday, and we're going to have a blast. Bless you guys. Go in peace.